Hello, and welcome to Improbable Things. I'm J. Grace Pennington, and this is my podcast where I share 6 improbable thoughts before breakfast, which is just 6 thoughts that I've had over the week about reading or writing, or sometimes about both. So I've got my 6 things down, and I am ready to get started for the day. Number 1, the very exciting news is that yesterday I finished the first draft of Firmament Humanoid, the 8th book in my young adult science fiction series, Firmament, and I've been working on it for quite a while now. So it was really nice too, because especially the last little bit, like maybe the last couple chapters, chapter and a half, had dragged quite a bit. Like I finished the rest of it very quickly, then had to take a break to work on some other things, and then of course once I got back I'd lost my momentum and it just took a while, but I ended up writing the entire last chapter yesterday, and honestly my biggest motivation to just finish it up was that I knew that if I did, I could talk about it on the podcast today and share with y'all that I had finished it, so that was actually super helpful. I'm very excited. Next step is going to be to get it to some beta readers, and then I'll print it out and start rewriting. And my absolute ultimate goal would be to get it out by the end of the year and thus fulfill my dream that I've had for the past decade and never have actually made happen, of getting at least 2 Firmament books out in a single year. And I would absolutely just love to get these coming out more quickly, get them to people sooner, don't make them wait a year or 2 between installments, and just really have the end in sight of completing this series that means so much to me. And I don't want it to keep dragging. I want to build some momentum, and I want to, just really be dedicated to it even more than I have been. So I'm not making any promises, but I do think it's definitely, it's easily doable to get it out by the end of the year. So we'll see what happens. Number 2, I'm continuing to publish book 7, Eleftheria, on Kindle Vella, and chapter 13 came out yesterday. So there are, I believe 24 chapters total. So it's more than halfway out, and I wouldn't say it's been extremely successful, but it has been. I don't regret it. Like, it's been a good experiment, and I would definitely do it again. Part of the reason I went into it is I really didn't have anything to lose by it, and I need to push myself out of my comfort zone to try new things if I'm gonna keep getting my books out there. So, I'm still planning on getting the paperback and the regular ebook out in October. So, I'll still have that. That was just a little delayed, and I have enjoyed trying this, and I do think I'm going to try it again, and just continue to experiment. So anyway, chapters 1 through 13 of that are out on Kindle Vella, and yes, so you can either read them there or wait until October if you'd rather go the old-fashioned and even more old-fashioned way of just a regular old ebook or a paperback that you can actually hold in your hands, which is personally my favorite. Number 3, I've really been trying to market Radialoway, the first book in the series, which is free on Kindle permanently. And so there are a lot of sites that will help you promote a free book. And so I've been submitting to those, buying some small ads, doing a lot of things like that. And it has definitely paid off. Like, I've had a lot of downloads. And then, of course, the goal being that it will hook readers into the rest of the series, which is not free. Although I do try to keep them affordable. I think all the Kindle books are just $2.99 a piece. But anyway, so I took a look at the Amazon rankings for Radialoway last night, and they were pretty exciting. It's actually number 3 in Christian futuristic fiction. But I will say, just to get a little nerdy and on you on the behind the scenes of the marketing and writing side of things, the categories you choose when you're self-publishing really make a huge difference, because where you are in the ratings does matter, because if you're higher, it is easier for your book to get seen. And so what category it is in will determine how high it can go, at least, within reason. So for instance, if I had just put Radialoway in the category of science fiction, it would be number a million. Like, I don't even know. Like, it would not be visible at all because that's such a massive category. And not only does it span a lot of different things, like it's very broad, but it also, there's just a lot of sci-fi authors that are so much more popular than me that already have a following. There's a mainstream, like New York Times best-selling authors in that category, etc. Whereas if I had, say, just put it in fiction, it would be like number a billion. Like, it would not even be a blip. Because that's an even more broad category, obviously, with even more best-selling and popular and famous writers. So you want to be strategic and put it in a category that is very specific and also that is as small as possible, because it will raise you in the rankings, which can sound like it's like a trick almost. And to a certain extent it is, but really it is just about getting it in front of readers. Like, if readers can't find it or see it, then they're not going to be able to even try it, read it, see if they like it, whatever. So by putting it in Christian futuristic fiction, that's a pretty small category. And honestly, a lot of it is like end times type fiction, like Left Behind and things like that. But still, it does fit the category and it does help the rankings. And the rankings are pretty good in the other categories that it's in as well. So that's exciting to see that some of the work that I'm doing is paying off and encourages me to keep at it. The number 4, this is just a really funny anecdote, and at first it's going to seem like it has nothing to do with reading or writing or stories, but I'll explain why. So yesterday I took all my kids to an indoor playground at a church because it's over 100 degrees every day here, so we can't go to the parks. So we went to this playground with some friends, and April kept wandering off. April's 2. And I would send Violet to go get her, bring her back, or we could see her. I knew she couldn't go far because, it's a contained area. And I could see most of it from where I was, but there was places I couldn't see. So I would send Violet, who's quintessential big sister, to go and get April and bring her back. So at one point, Violet, a very dramatic child, comes up to me and she's just like, I can't find April. She's not coming back, or whatever, something along those lines. And then April, at that moment, came walking up to us. And Violet throws her arms around her little sister, and starts saying, April, we were worried about you. We were so worried about you. Exactly like that. And I tried not to show it, but I was dying laughing. It was so hilarious. And in that moment, I knew, like, the thought I had is, I'm like, I don't know where, but obviously she saw that in some show that she watched. I don't know what it was, but in something she watched, something like that happened, and she remembered it and thought it applied to the situation. And it just drove home to me again. They are so influenced by what they watch and what they read. And I always know the importance of, being careful what they watch and read and how they're influenced. Obviously, I'm very aware of that, as I've talked about before on this podcast, but it just reinforced that. Like, obviously this is just a silly, innocent thing, and it was really funny and it was sweet in a way, but it just reminds me, like, they are going to look at what they see in the stories they read and the things that they watch, and it affects their behavior because they bury it in their minds, and it influences who they are and how they act. And so it just was a good, refreshing and funny way to be reminded that is so important, and that what I'm doing when I preview the things that they're going to watch and the books we're going to get from the library, that's not a waste of time, and that is extremely important. So yeah, they're pretty funny and dramatic. So number 5, I'm currently reading. I've been reading a whole bunch, which is awesome. And I love it. So right now, the book I'm reading is a little bit random. I've been trying to kind of alternate between fiction and nonfiction because I have a lot of nonfiction books I want to read, parenting and marriage books, writing books. I got a bunch of different, like, Christian living or theology type books from the library. But I also do want to enjoy, read some reading that's just for enjoyment, and also to observe as a writer. And also just because I have a massive fiction to read list that I want to actually make a dent in. But so I got started reading this book called Shutter Island, and I got it because it was like $1 at Half Price Books, and my husband really likes the movie, but I can't watch it because it has some content in it that I don't watch. But a lot of times, there's things when you're reading. For one thing, it's obviously different than watching, but also it's easier to kind of like just skim over things, and just not have it as like front and center and present in your mind. So I thought I'd read the book and then I could talk to him about the story. And it is very interesting. I do think it's well written. It's kind of a thriller, which I don't read a lot of, but I do tend to enjoy. And so it's also like kind of a mystery. The dialogue's very engaging. The description is good. It's not too heavy-handed, but it's very visual. Like, I would say it's well written overall. And I am, again, finding it interesting. I'm intrigued, want to find out what's going on, etc. All the good stuff. But it's not horrible as far as content. It's definitely not the worst. It's nothing like so bad that I'm stopping reading it, obviously. But there is quite a bit of just gratuitous language sprinkled throughout, and sexuality. There's not any like sex scenes or anything like that, but there's just memories of things with his wife, or I don't know how to explain. There's just a few instances of kind of like sensual descriptions that I just don't appreciate. And I say gratuitous because none of that really needs to be in there. Like, you can tell us that he loves and misses his wife without like getting descriptive about it. And you can have these guys, like, these are, U.S. Marshals. So, they can be tough without just like sprinkling F-bombs here and there. And I appreciate that there's not a ton, because if there was, I really couldn't even enjoy reading it. But they are here and there. And also, this is set in the 50s. And it just kind of takes me out of the story, because I'm just kind of like, ugh, when I come across something like that, I'm like, ugh, I don't really care to be reading this, and just kind of trying to skim past it. And again, it really doesn't need to be there. And for me, even if it needed to be there, I still don't, or, even if there was like a purpose where it fit into the story, I still don't care to be reading it, that sort of content. But it's even worse when it's just kind of annoying, because it just does not need to be there at all. It doesn't contribute to the story, in my opinion. So, like I said, it's not enough that I'm going to stop reading it, and I am very interested to see what happens next. But this is definitely not going to be a keeper. When I'm done reading it, I'm just going to donate it or take it back to Half Price Books or something. Well, number 6 for my ramble for the week, my husband and I have been watching season 3 of The Orville, which we watched the first 2 seasons when they came out on, I think, ABC a few years ago, and then there was a long hiatus between that and season 3, which I think is now owned by Hulu. So anyway, we've been watching it, and we took a while to get to it, so the whole season's out, so we've been able to, watch the episodes pretty quickly. I think we're maybe like halfway through the season. But what really interests me about it, it's an enjoyable show. The characters are fun. It feels very much like Star Trek, which I like. And I was said to my husband even, I'm like, why does this feel more like Star Trek than the current Star Trek shows do? Because it has all the things I like about Star Trek. Like I said, enjoyable characters, very interesting situations where they explore different themes, which is what I love about sci-fi in general. But what's really been interesting, my husband and I, as we watch it, and we noticed this in the past seasons too, is the way they address topics. So the show creator is Seth MacFarlane, who I know is just kind of an interesting figure. And a lot of the shows a lot of the things he's done, I don't know, they can be kind of controversial. And this is the only work of his that I've seen. And I do find it fascinating, the angle, like I said, at which he will come at different topics, because sometimes I can't even really tell what point he's trying to make. He's just kind of exploring the topic. And I actually really like that. And I think that is a really good fit with the genre of science fiction, because it does really lend itself to taking a subject and just pushing it further, or pushing it more to its natural outcome and just seeing what it is. And so obviously within that you can and usually do make some kind of point, but still sometimes it's not, doesn't have to be as explicit, because you're really more exploring the topic and seeing what you come up with than pointing at a particular message. So we've noticed that a lot in this show. It obviously does have some clear points of view, but there was a really interesting episode that we last watched. So there's a very, and this has, the thing is, all of it connects to like backstory from the previous seasons. So there's a race in this show that is established early on that the entire race is only male. And so obviously, we're like, okay, so there's like a quote gay couple, because you have two men married because there's only males in this species. So we're just like, whatever, that's not like a huge plot point in the show, so we just ignore it. It's kind of dumb, whatever. But then it does actually come into the show when this couple, quote unquote, has a baby, and the baby is female, and it's established that, oh, this can like very rarely happen, but it's like a disgrace, and it has to be corrected. And so obviously you can see how this is very relevant to things that are going on. And so all this happened like a few years ago in the show, and one of the earlier seasons, and you have one parent that says, no, we just need to let this baby be what it actually is, a female, and the other parent is saying, no, we have to make it a male, because otherwise they'll be shunned and blah blah blah. And it ends up in this whole court case, and it was a whole thing. And so they do end up having to change the baby, but of course, so it was against one parent's wishes. So it's it's this whole, and so that episode even I found interesting because it explored some of those themes, but you can probably see just from the way I'm describing it, it definitely wasn't clearly on board with like a trans agenda or anything like that. It was just kind of looking into the topic. And it also did address, top things like feminism and sexism, but not in a really direct way, just kind of in a, women should be valued, just a very slight, exploration of that, of like there are differences between men and women. So I actually felt like, the way they took it was just interesting. So I remembered that very clearly. And then I was kind of surprised in this more recent episode, they have this child's now older, and is really struggling and just feeling, just all of these conflicting emotions about themselves, the child believes itself to be male and has never been told about everything that happened. And so anyway, through the twists and turns of the story, decides, no, like I was born female and that's what I want to be. And, of course it's a whole scandal, and one parent is trying, they're trying to figure out in the family how to blah, blah, blah. So I'm not going to get into describing the whole episode, but my point is, my husband and I, the whole time, we're kind of looking at each other like, how are we supposed to take this? Like, in a way, the child is like, wanting to transition and saying, this is what I want to be, blah, blah, blah. So that would seem like it goes along with sort of like a trans, worldview, like transitioning kids or whatever, a lot of things that are going on right now. But on the other hand, what this child and those who support her are saying actually does fit with our worldview, which is that this is, she was born a female, and that is really who she is, no matter what else has been done. And she wants to return to that and live that out, because that is the truth. And so in a way, it really seems like it fits more with our worldview, but it was just done in such a unusual way, such a way that's